Good morning, afternoon, my friends. Today, I want to have an honest conversation with you. A conversation about reclaiming your power, stepping into your truth, and finding the courage to live a life free of unnecessary entanglements. We live in a world where we're often taught that to be worthy, we must strive endlessly for attention, affection, and validation. But I want to propose something different today. What if the key to fulfillment isn't about begging, chasing, texting, or playing games? What if the key lies in something simpler, something deeper? Let's pause for a moment and ask a question many of us rarely reflect on. What does it truly mean to own your worth? In a world that constantly bombards us with messages that we are not enough, that we need to do more, be more, or have more, it can feel like our worth is something external, something we need to earn or prove. But the truth is this: your worth has never been and will never be up for negotiation. Owning your worth begins with understanding that you are inherently valuable, not because of your achievements, possessions, or even the approval of others, but because of who you are at your core. It's not tied to how many likes you get on social media, how quickly someone responds to your text, or whether you're chosen by others in relationships or opportunities. Your worth is intrinsic. It's the foundation of your identity, not a reflection of your circumstances. But here's the challenge: standing still and owning your worth requires courage. Why? Because it means resisting the urge to hustle for your value. It means refusing to lower your standards or compromise your integrity just to be seen, heard, or validated. And in a culture that glorifies busyness and constant striving, it can feel counterintuitive, even rebellious, to simply stand still and declare, "I am enough." Standing still doesn't mean inaction or complacency. It's not about giving up on your goals or desires. Rather, it's about grounding yourself in the belief that your value is not contingent on someone else's perception of you. It's about saying, "I don't need to beg for what I deserve, because what is truly meant for me will align with the person I am becoming." Imagine this: a tree in the forest doesn't chase the rain. It doesn't beg the sun to shine or the soil to nourish it. It simply stands still, firmly rooted in its place, and allows nature to bring what it needs in due time. And just like that tree, when you stand firm in your worth, you create an unshakable foundation. You send a powerful message to the world: I am not here to chase, but to align. Owning your worth also means letting go of the fear of rejection. Rejection is not a reflection of your value. It's often a redirection to something or someone more aligned with your purpose. When you stand still, you stop seeking validation from external sources, and instead you learn to validate yourself. You stop saying, "Pick me, choose me, see me," and start saying, "I choose myself." And let's be honest, this isn't always easy. Standing still can feel lonely. It can feel vulnerable. But it's in this stillness that you build resilience. It's in this stillness that you discover your true power. Because when you no longer rely on the fleeting approval of others, you become unshakable. You learn to find joy and fulfillment within yourself. And that is the kind of strength that no one can take away from you. So, my friends, I encourage you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I standing in my worth, or am I chasing validation? If you find yourself chasing, it's not too late to stop. Pause. Anchor yourself. Declare your value not as a question, but as a statement: I am worthy. Stand still and watch as the world adjusts to meet you there. When you own your worth, you stop settling for crumbs because you understand you deserve the feast. You stop chasing people or opportunities that don't see your value because you know that what's meant for you will never require you to beg. And in this stillness, in this quiet confidence, you will find a freedom and peace that is truly transformative. How often do we find ourselves running after things, believing that if we just try a little harder, push a little more, or run a little faster, we'll finally reach what we're looking for? Whether it's a relationship, a career goal, or even the approval of others, we've been conditioned to think that chasing is the only way to get what we want. But chasing, my friends, is exhausting. It drains your energy, erodes your confidence, and leaves you feeling like you're always one step behind. Let me tell you something important. Chasing puts the power outside of you. When you chase, you're essentially saying, this thing I'm running after is more important than my peace, my dignity, and my well-being. You're saying, I need this so badly that I'm willing to lose myself to get it. But here's the truth, you don't have to chase anything. The things, people, and opportunities that are truly meant for you will never require you to sacrifice your worth or your sense of self. So what's the alternative to chasing? It's attraction. And no, I'm not talking about some magical wishful thinking where you sit back and hope for things to fall into your lap. Attraction is about alignment. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally draws in what is meant for them. When you stop chasing and start focusing on your own growth, your own joy, and your own purpose, you create an energy that's magnetic. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to catch a butterfly. If you run after it, wildly waving your hands, the butterfly will keep flying further and further away. But if you sit still, surrounded by a beautiful garden, the butterfly will eventually come to you. The same principle applies to life. When you cultivate your own garden, your mind, your heart, and your spirit, you attract the right opportunities, relationships, and experiences without having to chase them down. But how do you shift from chasing to attracting? It starts with recognizing your own value. When you know your worth, you stop running after things that don't honor it. You stop begging for someone's attention or approval. Instead, you focus on becoming the best version of yourself. You ask yourself, what brings me joy? What helps me grow? What aligns with my values? And then you pour your energy into those things. Attracting also requires patience. This can be the hardest part, especially in a world that celebrates instant gratification. But remember, the most meaningful things in life take time. You can't rush a flower to bloom, and you can't rush your own growth. Trust that the seeds you're planting now, the work you're doing on yourself, will bear fruit in due time. It's important to note that attracting doesn't mean you won't face rejection or obstacles. You will. But when you're in a state of attraction, rejection doesn't devastate you because you know it's not a reflection of your worth. It's simply a redirection. You understand that what's meant for you will come in its own time and its own way. Attracting also means releasing control. Chasing often stems from a need to control outcomes, to force things to go a certain way. But control is an illusion. The more you try to cling to it, the more it slips through your fingers. Instead, focus on what you can control: your mindset, your actions, and your attitude, and let go of the rest. When you stop chasing and start attracting, something incredible happens. You begin to see that the things you thought you needed to run after were often not meant for you in the first place. You realize that by focusing on your own growth and alignment, you've opened the door to opportunities and relationships that are far better than anything you could have chased down. So my friends, I challenge you to stop running and start becoming. Stop chasing and start attracting. Focus on building yourself up, aligning with your values, and trusting the process. Because when you do, you'll find that the things meant for you will come, not because you chased them, but because you were ready to receive them. And that, my friends, is a life of true freedom and fulfillment. In a world that values constant connection, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that more communication equals better communication. Whether it's texting, emailing, calling, or posting on social media, we often equate frequency with effectiveness. But the truth is, constant communication can dilute your message and overwhelm both you and those on the receiving end. The real power lies in clarity, not in repetition or volume. Communicating clearly means being intentional with your words. It's about understanding what you want to convey before you speak or act. So often we communicate reactively, responding to a text immediately, sending an email in the heat of the moment, or speaking without fully thinking through our message. But when we prioritize clarity, we pause. We take the time to understand our thoughts, feelings, and intentions, and then we express them in a way that leaves no room for misunderstanding. Clear communication starts with self-awareness. Before you share something with someone else, ask yourself, what am I trying to say? What outcome am I hoping for? Am I communicating out of fear, frustration, or insecurity, or am I coming from a place of confidence and purpose? When you get clear with yourself first, your words become more impactful. You don't need to over-explain or repeat yourself because your message is already complete. Communicating clearly also involves listening. Often we focus so much on what we want to say that we forget the other half of the equation, truly hearing and understanding the other person. When you listen with intention, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're actively engaging with the other person's words, tone, and emotions, which allows you to respond more effectively. Another aspect of clear communication is setting boundaries. Constant communication can create a false sense of urgency, where you feel pressured to be available at all times. But you don't have to respond to every message immediately or explain every decision in great detail. Setting boundaries around your communication shows respect for your own time and energy, as well as for the other person's. It's not about shutting people out, it's about creating space for meaningful, thoughtful interactions. When you communicate clearly, you also avoid the pitfalls of assumptions and misunderstandings. Instead of expecting others to read your mind or interpret vague messages, you express yourself directly and honestly. This doesn't mean being harsh or unkind. It means speaking your truth in a way that is respectful and constructive. It's about saying what you mean and meaning what you say without unnecessary embellishment or ambiguity. Clarity in communication also builds trust. When you are consistent and transparent in your words, people know where they stand with you. They don't have to guess your intentions or decode your messages. This kind of trust strengthens relationships and fosters deeper connections, whether in your personal life or professional endeavors. It's important to understand that communicating clearly doesn't mean overloading the other person with information. Sometimes less is more. A well-thought-out message delivered at the right time can have a far greater impact than a constant stream of words. Silence, too, can be a powerful form of communication. It gives space for reflection and understanding, both for you and the other person. Clear communication also means being mindful of how your message is received. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. Your tone, body language, and choice of words all play a role in how your message is interpreted. Taking the time to consider the other person's perspective and emotional state can make your communication more effective and compassionate. When you prioritize clarity over constancy, you create a space where your words carry more weight. You move away from noise and toward meaning. In relationships, whether personal or professional, there's often an unspoken expectation to engage in games, manipulative behaviors, power struggles, or the subtle push and pull of trying to gain the upper hand. These games might seem harmless or even strategic at first, but they erode trust, authenticity, and respect over time. When you play games, you're not truly engaging with others, you're maneuvering around them. And while this might yield short-term results, it damages the foundation of any meaningful connection in the long run. Saying no to games requires courage. It means stepping away from the fear of losing or the desire to win and instead committing to authenticity and honesty. It means refusing to manipulate or be manipulated, even when the pressure to conform to these dynamics feels overwhelming. The truth is, engaging in games only perpetuates a cycle of mistrust and insecurity, and breaking that cycle begins with choosing a different path. The alternative to games is boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are guidelines that define what is acceptable and unacceptable in your interactions with others. They are a reflection of your values, priorities, and self-respect. When you set boundaries, you're not only protecting yourself, you're also showing others how to engage with you in a healthy and respectful way. Boundaries start with clarity. To set effective boundaries, you must first know yourself. What are your non-negotiables? What behaviors make you feel disrespected or undervalued? What kind of interactions do you want to foster in your relationships? When you have a clear understanding of these things, you can communicate your boundaries with confidence and without apology. Setting boundaries can be uncomfortable, especially if you've been conditioned to prioritize others' feelings over your own. But discomfort is a necessary part of growth. When you say yes to boundaries, you're also saying yes to your own well-being and self-worth. You're saying, I value myself enough to ensure that my relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding. Boundaries are not just about saying no, they're also about saying yes to what aligns with your values and needs. They create space for authenticity because they remove the need for pretense or manipulation. When you communicate your boundaries, you're not playing games to get what you want, you're clearly expressing what works for you and what doesn't. It's important to recognize that boundaries are not about controlling others, they're about managing your own energy and responses. You can't force someone to respect your boundaries, but you can decide how you'll respond if they don't. This might mean walking away from relationships or situations that don't honor your boundaries. And while this can be difficult, it's a powerful act of self-respect. Boundaries also empower others. When you set and uphold your boundaries, you give others permission to do the same. You create a dynamic where honesty and respect are valued over manipulation and control. In this space, relationships can flourish because they're built on trust and mutual understanding rather than on fear or competition. Saying no to games and yes to boundaries also requires consistency. Boundaries are not a one-time declaration, they are an ongoing practice. This means reinforcing them when they're tested and being willing to adjust them as you grow and evolve. It also means being willing to face pushback from those who benefit from your lack of boundaries and standing firm in your commitment to yourself. Boundaries free you from the exhausting cycle of games. They allow you to engage with others from a place of authenticity and integrity rather than from a place of fear or manipulation. By saying no to games, you're choosing to build connections that are real, meaningful, and sustainable. At the heart of our need to control lies a deeper truth fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of things not unfolding as we hope or plan. Control gives us the illusion of safety, a belief that if we micromanage every detail, anticipate every outcome, or influence every decision, we can prevent disappointment, rejection, or pain. But in reality, control is a heavy burden, one that robs us of peace and joy. Letting go of control begins with learning to trust yourself. Trusting yourself is not about knowing the outcome, it's about knowing that whatever happens, you are equipped to face it. It's about believing in your ability to adapt, to learn, to grow, and to recover. So often, we cling to control because we doubt our resilience, we question our capacity to handle uncertainty or navigate challenges, and in doing so, we trap ourselves in a cycle of overthinking and overdoing. But when you trust yourself, you no longer need to control every variable. You can step back and allow life to unfold, knowing that you have the strength to handle whatever comes your way. Letting go of control also means recognizing that not everything is meant to be within your grasp. Some outcomes, relationships, and situations are beyond your influence, no matter how much effort you invest. Accepting this reality is not about giving up, it's about surrendering to the flow of life. It's about acknowledging that there's a greater rhythm at work, one that doesn't always align with your timeline or expectations, but often brings you to where you're meant to be. Trusting yourself also requires listening to your inner wisdom. Deep within, you already know what's right for you, even if the noise of the world tries to convince you otherwise. When you stop trying to control every external factor, you create space to hear your intuition. This inner voice guides you not with certainty, but with clarity, a clarity that comes from aligning with your values, your purpose, and your truth. Letting go of control doesn't mean abandoning responsibility, it means shifting your focus. Instead of fixating on outcomes you can't guarantee, you pour your energy into what you can control: your mindset, your actions, your responses. You learn to trust the process even when the path ahead feels unclear. You begin to see that your worth is not tied to your ability to control outcomes, but to your courage to show up fully in the face of the unknown. Letting go of control also invites freedom into your life. When you're no longer consumed by the need to manage every detail, you free yourself to be present, to experience joy, and to connect deeply with others. You give yourself permission to release the weight of perfectionism and embrace the beauty of imperfection. You stop seeing life as a series of problems to be solved and start experiencing it as an adventure to be lived. Trusting yourself is a practice, one that requires patience and compassion. It's not about always getting it right, but about showing up for yourself with honesty and grace. It's about learning to navigate the balance between effort and surrender, action and acceptance. Over time, you begin to realize that the strength you've been searching for outside yourself has always been within. Letting go of control doesn't mean you care less, it means you care differently. It means you trust that your worth is not dependent on how much you do or how perfectly you manage every situation. It means you allow yourself to breathe, to let go of the grip you've been holding so tightly, and to trust that what is meant for you will find its way to you in its own time. In the end, life flourishes when you choose authenticity over pretense, self-worth over pursuit, clarity over noise, boundaries over games, and trust over control. Embrace stillness, attract what aligns with you, communicate intentionally, stand firm in your values, and release the need to grasp at what isn't yours to hold. By living in alignment with these principles, you create space for fulfillment, connection, and a life grounded in purpose and integrity.